I became a doctor to honor my adoptive parents. Then my childhood nurse told me on her deathbed that she was my real mother. I was 7 years old when I first understood what love meant. It wasn't through grand gestures or fancy gifts. It was through the gentle hands of the woman who brushed my hair before bed, who hummed lullabies I didn't understand, who sat beside me through every fever and fear. Her name was Rose. To me, she wasn't a nanny or a nurse. She was simply Mama Rose. I grew up in a beautiful, quiet house in Massachusetts. My parents, Dr. and Mrs. Whitaker, were everything people admired. Successful, respected, the kind of couple whose Christmas cards made it into the local paper every year. Dad was a surgeon. Mom was a university professor. And me? I was their miracle child, the baby they'd adopted after years of infertility. They never hid that fact. They just never talked about it either. Family isn't blood, my mother would say, straightening my uniform before school. It's commitment, and she was right. They gave me everything: education, comfort, opportunities. But when the house grew quiet, when the lights dimmed and my parents retreated into their world of research and dinner parties, it was Rose who filled the silence. She wasn't like anyone else I knew. She had a quiet grace, a voice that carried warmth even when she said nothing at all. Her accent was different, soft, lilting, something African maybe, though I never asked from where. Every morning, I'd wake to the smell of jasmine oil and coffee, and there she'd be, humming, pressing my clothes, talking to herself in her language. I used to sit at the kitchen counter, watching her work. "Why do you always hum that song?" I once asked. She smiled. "It's a song my mother used to sing to me when I was little." "Can you teach me?" She hesitated, just for a second, then nodded. "One day, maybe." My mother was distant, not unkind, but reserved. The type who believed love should be shown through achievement, not affection. She'd attend my school recitals, always sitting straight-backed, clapping politely, never once shedding a tear. Rose, on the other hand, cried every time. When I got sick, it was Rose who stayed by my bed through the night. When I had nightmares, it was her voice that chased the darkness away. Sometimes she'd whisper things when she thought I was asleep. "Sleep well, my little heart. You are loved more than you know." I didn't realize then how much those words would mean later. I was 10 when I first overheard my parents arguing. It was late, the kind of late that makes voices sharper. I remember hearing my name. "She's too attached to her," my mother said, her tone clipped. "She needs to understand boundaries." My father's voice was lower, calmer. "Rose has been with her since birth. You can't just ask a child to unlove someone." "This isn't about love," my mother snapped. "It's about confusion." I remember lying there in the dark, clutching my teddy bear, not understanding what I had done wrong, only that somehow, loving Rose was becoming something forbidden. The next morning, my mother smiled as if nothing had happened, but something inside me had changed. When I turned 12, Rose stopped working full-time. "Your parents think you're old enough to take care of yourself more," she told me, her voice calm, but her eyes distant. She said she'd still visit on weekends, but I knew what that meant. I begged her not to go. "Please, Mama Rose, I'll be good. I promise." She knelt in front of me, holding my face in her hands. "You've always been good, my heart," she said. "This isn't your fault." Then she hugged me, tightly, desperately, like someone trying to memorize a feeling before it disappears. After that, she was gone. Life moved forward, as it tends to. Teenage years, college applications, part-time jobs, all the chaos of growing up filled the spaces she had left behind, but her absence never stopped echoing. I'd sometimes catch the faint smell of jasmine and turn around, expecting her. I'd see women in the street with the same gentle posture, the same soft eyes, and for a heartbeat, I'd think, that's her. It never was. I sent letters for a while, updates, small moments, holidays, but she never replied. Eventually, I convinced myself she must have moved far away, maybe back to her home country it hurt, but it was easier to believe she'd simply gone back to her life than to wonder why she'd left mine. When I got into medical school, I dedicated my admission to my parents. They were proud, of course, but deep down, I knew I wasn't doing it for them. I wanted to be like her. The way she could heal with a touch. The way she made pain bearable simply by being present. I didn't have her hands or her voice, but I had her compassion, and that was enough. During residency, whenever I'd walk into a room to comfort a frightened patient, I'd hear her humming in my memory. That melody became my anchor, my reminder that medicine wasn't about glory. It was about care. It was a rainy afternoon when I got the call. I was in my office at the hospital reviewing charts when the receptionist knocked. "Dr. Whitaker, someone left this envelope for you." I frowned. "Who?" She didn't say. "Just that you'd know." The envelope was thin, old-fashioned, sealed with wax. My name was written in handwriting I hadn't seen in over a decade. Rose. My heart nearly stopped. Inside was a short note. "My heart, if you remember me, know that I never forgot you. I am in St. Mary's Hospice in New Haven. If you can, please come. Rose." I read it 3 times before I could move. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing like it remembered something my mind couldn't yet grasp. I drove through the rain that evening, barely seeing the road. Every memory of her came flooding back, her laugh, her touch, the lullaby. When I reached St. Mary's, the nurse at the desk guided me to a small, quiet room at the end of the hall. "She's been waiting for you," she said gently. I pushed the door open. There she was. Thinner, older, her once dark hair streaked with silver. But her eyes, those eyes, still held the same warmth. When she saw me, she smiled weakly. "My little heart," she whispered. My throat tightened. "Mama Rose." I rushed to her side, kneeling, taking her frail hands in mine. She chuckled softly. "A doctor now." "I always knew you would be," I laughed through tears. "You kept my letter?" She nodded. "All of them. We talked for hours, or maybe minutes. Time doesn't exist in moments like that." She asked about my life, my work, my family. Her voice was soft but tired, like someone carrying a weight they can no longer hide. Then, as the sky outside darkened, she squeezed my hand suddenly. Her eyes were wet. "There's something you should know," she whispered. "What is it?" She hesitated, as if words were fighting to escape her. "I never left you, Ella. I never wanted to." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She smiled faintly, tears slipping down her cheeks. You were never supposed to be theirs." And before I could ask what she meant, she began to cough violently. Nurses rushed in, the monitors beeped. Alarms went off. I was ushered out of the room, my heart pounding, her last words echoing in my head. She never woke up again that night, and I was left with a sentence, half-spoken, half-broken, that would unravel everything I thought I knew about my life. You were never supposed to be theirs. The night she died, I sat in my car for hours outside the hospice, staring at nothing. The rain had stopped, but the world still felt soaked, heavy, blurred, unreal. Her last words kept replaying in my head. You were never supposed to be theirs. They didn't sound like bitterness. They sounded like confession. 2 days later, I received a call from the hospice. The nurse's voice was calm, professional, but there was something in her tone, a quiet hesitation that made my heart race. "Miss Whitaker." "Before she passed, Miss Rose left something for you." A small box. When I arrived, they handed me a wooden chest, old, worn smooth by time. Inside were photos, letters, and a folded document sealed with red ribbon. On the top was a note written in her delicate hand. "My heart, if you are reading this, then I am gone. What I tell you now may hurt you, but the truth deserves light, even when it comes too late. You were not adopted the way you were told. You were given away." I froze. My stomach clenched as if gravity had suddenly doubled. They were good people, kind people, but they were not meant to be your parents. Because you already had one, there was no signature. Only a small photograph beneath the paper of a young woman in her 20s, holding a baby with a blanket I recognized instantly. My blanket, and that woman was Rose. I don't remember leaving the hospice. One moment I was reading the letter. The next, I was back in my car, gasping for air like I'd forgotten how to breathe. Could it be true? Was Rose, my nanny, my caregiver, really my mother? It seemed impossible. But deep down, something in me already knew. Every smile, every touch, every sleepless night she'd spent by my side. They hadn't been professional duties. They had been instinct, a mother's instinct. That evening, I drove straight to my parents' house. The same White House I'd grown up in, now suddenly foreign. My mother opened the door, surprised. "Ella, what are you doing here?" I held up the box. "We need to talk." My father appeared behind her, his face pale when he saw what I was holding. "Where did you get that?" he asked quietly. I stepped inside, my voice trembling. "From her." "From Rose." My mother's eyes hardened. "That woman again?" "I thought she's dead," I interrupted. "And before she died, she told me something. Something about me. About you." My father sighed heavily, sinking into the armchair. My mother crossed her arms, defensive. "Ella, whatever she told you, she said she was my mother." Silence. The kind that feels like it might shatter the air itself. My mother's lips parted, then closed again. "She didn't deny it. Is it true?" I demanded. Neither of them spoke. "Answer me." Finally, my father lifted his head. His voice broke when he said it. "Yes, it's true." I felt the room tilt. My knees gave out and I sat on the edge of the couch, my hands shaking. "Why?" I whispered. "Why didn't you tell me?" My mother's eyes filled with tears. Not the kind that fall, but the kind that sting and stay. "You were sick," she said softly. "You were born too early, too small. The doctors said you might not live." She was a young maid with no money, no insurance, no husband. She begged us to help. "We paid for your care. When you survived, we couldn't let you go." My father spoke next, his tone heavy with guilt. "We were supposed to raise you for a few months while she found work. But 1 month became 6. And by then, your mother, Rose, was terrified of losing you to poverty. So she agreed to let us adopt you officially." "But I never saw papers," I said. "There was no file, no record." He looked away. "Because it wasn't legal." "Not entirely. She signed a private agreement." My chest tightened. "You stole me." "No," my mother cried. "We loved you. We gave you everything she couldn't." "That's not the same as giving me her." My mother knelt in front of me, her voice desperate. "Ella, please." "We did what we thought was best." "For who? For me or for yourselves?" She flinched. I looked at my father. "You're doctors. You save lives. How could you take one and hide it?" He buried his face in his hands. "Because we couldn't lose you. After all those years of trying, you were the only child we ever had." We told ourselves it was destiny. I stood up, trembling. Destiny doesn't need lies to survive. I walked out before they could say another word. The box pressed against my chest felt heavier than any medical textbook I had ever carried. I didn't sleep that night. I opened every envelope, every photograph, every letter inside the box. There were baby pictures of me in Rose's arms, newspaper clippings of the hospital where I was born, and one final note written in faded ink, "My little heart." They said I couldn't keep you, that I had nothing to offer but love. I gave you away thinking it would save you. But every day since, I've lived in the shadow of that choice. I watched you grow from afar, never able to hold you again. Forgive me, my child. I never stopped being your mother. I pressed the paper to my chest and sobbed until morning. A week later, I returned to St. Mary's. The staff showed me where they'd buried her, a small plot near a garden filled with wildflowers. The plaque read simply, "Rose A. Bennett, 1959-2022. She cared for others as she wished to be cared for. I brought white lilies, the kind she used to keep by my bedside when I was little. For a long time, I couldn't speak. Then quietly, I began to talk. "I know now," I whispered. "I know who you were, and I forgive you." A breeze passed through the trees, carrying the faint scent of jasmine. It felt like her answer. A month later, I received another envelope, forwarded from the hospice. Inside was a sealed letter addressed simply, "To my daughter, if she ever finds the truth." I unfolded it with trembling hands. My heart, if you're reading this, it means I was brave enough to tell you what I never dared say in life. Yes, I am your mother. I carried you beneath my heart and gave you away to save your future, not to erase myself from it. I watched you grow from afar, through photos your parents sent for a few years before they stopped. Every birthday, I lit a candle. Every night, I prayed your life would be better than mine. Do not hate them. They loved you too. They simply loved you in a way that was afraid to lose. Please live for me. Be the healer I could never afford to become. Every patient you touch, every soul you comfort, that is me, loving you still. Rose tears blurred the words. I closed my eyes and imagined her voice. Soft, calm, filled with the same melody that had followed me all my life. Months passed. Eventually, I called my parents. When they opened the door, I saw fear in their faces, fear that I'd come to punish them, to tear apart what was left of our fragile bond. But I didn't. I sat at their kitchen table, the same one where Rose had once poured me tea, and said simply, "I forgive you." My mother broke down first. My father followed. We cried together, and not as a perfect family, but as imperfect people bound by love and mistakes. "I still love you," I said. "But I need to know her too." My father nodded. "Then tell her story. Keep her alive." Years later, I became head of pediatrics at St. Mary's, the same hospital where Rose had spent her final days. Every time I walked through those halls, I felt her presence, quiet, steady, unseen. But there, I started a small foundation in her name, the Rose Bennett Fund for Mothers in Need. We provided care for women who couldn't afford it, the way she once couldn't. And every time a child's cry filled the ward, I'd hum the lullaby she used to sing. At first softly, then louder, until it became our tradition. A song of comfort passed from one motherless soul to another. On the anniversary of her death, I stood in the hospital garden where her plaque rested. It was sunset, the sky painted gold and crimson. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Thank you for choosing love over pride. I hope you see me now. I hope you're proud." A nurse walked by, holding a newborn wrapped in a pink blanket. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw the same warmth that used to live in Rose's. And then I heard it, faint but real, the sound of someone humming. That same tune, that same lullaby. I smiled through my tears. Maybe some songs never die. Maybe love doesn't either.